Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Orbital Takes. Today is Wednesday, November 16th. Today's episode is brought to you by Space Flight Hub and Space with Spo. On today's episode, we'll break down the hottest space news on the planet as always. We'll talk about last night's Artemis I moon mission launch. We have some good news about NASA's CAPSTONE CubeSat. We'll recap this week's space station Spacewalk. And as always, we'll end the episode with a quick launch and scrub of the week. Last night, all eyes on the planet were on the historic launch pad 39B when the Orion spacecraft and the SLS rocket lifted off for the first time. Pat, the party has officially started. Artemis II is next. Artemis III is down the line. Humans are officially going back to the moon. How are we feeling?
I'm so glad to be not talking about the launch anymore. I'm just glad it's behind us. Congratulations to Boeing and to NASA and to all of the other people who have spent thousands of hours, all the tens of thousands of people who have spent tens of thousands of hours on this thing. I'm just glad we're finally off planet and we can stop talking about the delays.
I'm like you. I'm just happy this thing is off the fucking ground. Guys, if you're just tuning in, this is the first in a series of increasingly complex missions to build a long-term human presence on the moon for decades to come. But Pat, we also learned that NASA has a new video editing team, and they created one of the craziest hype videos in NASA history, right?
Yeah, I agree. I was ready to run through a wall, and I'm saying there's no way that NASA did that. I think they hired an agency, a creative agency, to do that. That's my orbital take on that.
I literally want to put a astronaut helmet on and run through a fucking brick wall. I'm not kidding when I say that. When I saw that video, it was great.
NASA PR not known for its hype machine, but they knocked it out of the park on this one. That's for sure.
So if you didn't get a chance to see the launch last night, you can go on YouTube on NASA's channel, and they have a full replay of what you missed. Today, this morning, be on the lookout for some Earth views from the Orion spacecraft. It's going to be looking back on our planet. That's going to be hype. I'm really excited to see that. And yeah, this is just going to let us know if this rocket can hold humans on it for Artemis 2 and 3, right? I mean, do you think that the primary goal isn't achieved until this thing comes home on December 11th, right?
True. Yeah, true. And that's, that we've already seen the Orion capsule go to space and come back, but this is going actually around the moon. It's going to come back at orbit that kind of velocity. I can't wait to see the high def pictures of the Earthrise from the Orion capsule. Super hyped about that.
Yeah, and this is so on Artemis 1 right now, it's actually going to deploy 10 small satellites on its journey. These things are called cubesats, and they're going to perform a bunch of different shit to make sure that orbit's right. And that actually leads us into our next topic. The first CubeSat that we sent up about 2 months ago is finally successfully arrived in the moon's orbit. Pat, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. CAPSTONE, which we've talked about before, it's a little CubeSat that's investigating the near rectilinear halo orbit, which is an orbit that allows for it's so your spacecraft is like kind of going around the moon in a funky way. It's not just like circling it, but it allows for constant communication with Earth. So you don't have what we had during the Apollo program, where the blackout, where the craft would go on the far side of the moon and no direct line of sight to Earth, and they would lose comms for 45 minutes or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So this orbit, basically you don't have that. You have a constant communication. But it's never been investigated before. So this little CubeSat, it took a month, a little over a month to get there, because it doesn't have a ton of fuel, but using the laws of physics, it was able to insert itself into that near rectilinear halo orbit, which whoever came up with that name, could you come up with a more difficult thing to say? Come on. Just like a backwards circle orbit, or backwards funky orbit, but no, it's like near rectilinear halo orbit. Yeah, come on.
Do you know how many times I've had to cut my stutters from when I say that on these episodes? I pretty much I don't think I've ever pronounced that correctly.
You can get in trouble. It's rectilinear is very close to rectum. You gotta be careful,
bro. So this capstone is going to serve as the pathfinder, and it's going to demonstrate the new system of auto nav. I mean, that's so dope.
Yeah, so cool.
We don't know where the lunar gateway, like we don't know the exact path it's going to take yet, but this little baby like microwave, I think it's even smaller than a microwave. I think it could fit inside like a miniature fridge. But this little device that we sent up there is going to pave the way for humans to be living, breathing, and shitting in orbit around the moon, right? Like it's just so crazy to think about that. Like it really does start small, and then this mission's planned to be 6 months. I know that, and this was Rocket Lab's first deep space mission that's finally now a success, which is great. So congrats to Rocket Lab. If you guys don't remember, they launched on the Electron rocket back in New Zealand a few months ago. This is dope. This is great all around, right?
Yeah, it kind of, little bits of everything that the Artemis program will touch, commercial partners, this funky orbit, the lighting conditions as well. It's gonna check out the lighting conditions of the South Pole, which are going to be weird. So yeah, this is really Artemis 0.5, if you will. It's not quite a full Artemis mission, but definitely is vital to the overall program.
A massive week for NASA. All right, let's talk about these spacewalks this week. So the first in a series of end-of-the-year spacewalks kicked off on Tuesday morning outside the International Space Station. So these were first-time spacewalkers. So congrats to Josh Cascada and Frank Rubio, 2 astronauts. They went outside the space station for 7 hours and got a bunch of shit done. I think these spacewalks are the coolest part of being a NASA astronaut. Like, it's literally your job to go outside and like clean the space station, maintain it, make sure it stays up there, everything's clean and everything. It's just so sick. Plus you get to see the Earth underneath you as you're working outside this thing. I mean, it's scary, but fuck, man, it's got to be one of the coolest experiences to do as a human, no?
Absolutely. I was kind of surprised that both of them were rookies and they went out, because I thought they had like a rule that, and maybe this was just back in the shuttle days, where one person always had to have EVA experience in case anything went rogue or there's an anomaly of some kind. I guess when you think about it, ultimately these guys spend so many and these guys and gals spend hundreds of or thousands of hours training for this, so they're certainly well qualified. You said one of the coolest experiences as an astronaut, seeing the Earth float under you. It reminds me of one of the I think it was Apollo Soyuz test project. They had this big telescope mount thing that was like 100 feet or something like that, above, quote unquote, the Skylab. And they had to go up there and service it from time to time. And one of the guys, one of the astronauts who did, said that he felt like he was so far above the Skylab that he had like a sense of like vertigo, which is so crazy, because like, well, you're already in space, like what difference does 100 feet make?
Yeah.
But it's just, the human brain like literally can't comprehend it. Yeah, it'd be wild to see that.
The colors would be overwhelming too. I feel like if you just are looking down at the planet with no filter whatsoever, with just your eyes, right? Like if this isn't a 4K camera, like you're looking with your own 2 retinas. I feel like that's overwhelming in itself. I'd probably pass out.
Yeah. Hopefully, you don't have a William Shatner experience and you see death.
He goes, I came home and I saw death in his face. It's like, Jesus, William, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
This was so Tuesday spacewalk was the first NASA spacewalk since March. And I actually didn't know that the one in March, the astronaut Mathias ended it with water in his helmet. So they had to like go in immediately. I totally forgot about that. That is terrifying. That is the last place you want to get something in your eye when you're out there with a tether.
I think luckily they said it wasn't like when Luca Parmitano like almost drowned. It was more just like a condensation type thing, because they brought the suit back and they investigated and they didn't find anything structurally wrong with it. Yeah, these set of 3 spacewalks are going to be to install new solar arrays on the outside of the space station. They have these cool thing called the International Space Station Rollout Solar Array, the IROSA, and it's kind of the same type of concept for who was it recently? Just it was DART DART mission had one of these rollout solar arrays. They're kind of a flexible material kind of thing, and they're able to like literally roll out, so you can pack them up real tight, and then they install these like mounting brackets, and then when the solar arrays are brought up, they just kind of unfurl into these brackets. So it's a way to save mass and save space for a launch vehicle. So yeah, technology continues to get better, and then they just go over the top of the existing solar arrays. So the existing solar arrays, while they're not up to full operating power like they were when they were first installed, they at least produce some power. So so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Let's move on to launch and scrub of the week. Pat, let me kick us off here. I am going to launch the secretive Space Force space plane that has been all over the news this week. So it's a U.S. military space drone. It landed at the Kennedy Space Center over the weekend on Saturday after 2.5 years in orbit. That is so fucking long to be in orbit. It's unmanned, and it took its first flight in 2010. It's been like on the DL this entire time. Like nobody's said a word about this with the Space Force, which I thought was really cool. This is proof that the Space Force is down to collaborate with pretty much anybody to get ahead in the space industry. And I love that shit. I mean, this is also a big win for Boeing and Lockheed Martin, because it was like a joint venture between them. And anyone in theory now can get a deal with Space Force, which is dope, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know China has somehow has a magical ability to produce a space plane as well that has gone up. So it looks just like ours. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, I just think it's so sick that it was in orbit for like 2.5 years and nobody had any idea. So
yeah, didn't it break its previous record by like a year or something?
Yeah, and think about that. The past 2 years, while we've been keeping tabs, or on supercluster.com, we're figuring out who's in space, what spaceships are in space. The whole time there was a secret space plane with Space Force that we had no idea about. I kind of like that though. Like, what do they have up there now that they're not telling us?
It's been in orbit since Trump was president or something. Well,
yeah,
I think
a while.
That's crazy.
That's nuts. All right, what's your launch of the week?
Yeah. My launch of the week is this inflatable heat shield that NASA tested with a recent satellite launch. So this inflatable heat shield is going to open up a lot of capabilities for us for like Mars sample return and the Dragonfly mission to Titan. So like one of the big things with mass and spacecraft is the heat shield. Obviously, you don't want it to burn up as you're re-entering or entering an atmosphere. So you have to have protection to mitigate that. And obviously, when you think of a heat shield, it's like a big, massive thing that protects it. And so this materials was a kind of an inflatable deal, and you can see a video which I will cut a clip of so we can see it. But yeah, it just basically inflates, and it's a heat shield. So it's very small and compact and lightweight on the way up, but then once it gets into space and it inflates, boom, there's your heat shield. And with material sciences being constantly improved, it was able to come back and splash down in the ocean, and they recovered it. And yeah, so this is going to pave the way for a future Mars sample return. So we don't have to have this massive heat shield to protect that. It's going to pave the way for Dragonfly when it goes to Titan, because the Titan's atmosphere is like twice as thick as Earth's, so a ton of friction there. Yeah, it's cool to see this stuff continue to improve. What is your scrub of the week?
All right, so my scrub of the week, unfortunately, really sucks for me. I'm going to scrub my financial savings account. I'm kidding. I'm scrubbing my Robinhood account. Astra Space is laying off another 16% of their workforce, and I have a fuck ton of Astra Space stock. So it's a move that the company's leadership said they needed to do to focus on its resources, and they're basically trying to redo everything over there. They're trying not to go bankrupt, and they're trying to just stay afloat and get one of their vehicles to orbit over the next couple of years. But for now, my Astra stock is really fucking hurting. So I'm going to scrub my financial savings at the moment, unfortunately.
Dude, I'm sorry about that, man. Because like, yeah, did Astra go public with a SPAC? Do you know?
Yeah, well, I know that, they went public like earlier this year, and I bought a shit ton of money because I was like, oh, a hot new space company. I believe in these guys. I think we spoke about them like once on like episode 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's just been downhill.
Yeah.
So the two things that I've lost the most money on this year or the past 2 years is the Earth 2 like digital land. Like it's like Earth, like a simulation of Earth 2 where you buy property and then like, it's going to be in VR in the future, which maybe I didn't completely lose that money yet. But Astra Space, I put a shit ton in, all gone. So that just goes to show you at home, make smart gambles on which companies you think are going to do well. Don't end up like me with Astra Space.
A ton of space companies have gone public via the SPAC, the Special Purpose Acquisition Company, which is like a fast-tracked way. I'm oversimplifying this, of course, but it's like a fast-track way to go public, so you don't have to go through the whole IPO and financials and all that stuff. It's just a way to get a quick, infusion of cash. But a lot of these companies are maybe not ready to go public, as I think we're seeing with Astra.
Well, what's your scrub of the week?
A scrub of the week, Lightsail 2. Thank you for your service. Lightsail 2 is a product of the Planetary Society, of which you and I are both proud members.
Respect.
A Lightsail is basically solar sailing. So it's this little cubesat kind of thing, and it's got this massive. So it's like got a football size, like it's almost like Mylar, and it basically just catches the photon of the sun, and that is slowly pushed over time. So this is it was a demonstration mission. The Planetary Society tried to do this back in the 90s or the 80s. Anyway, that doesn't matter. This is the second time that the Planetary Society has tried to do this, but the first one, it blew up on the way up. So all of the payloads were lost. But then the Planetary Society members said, "Hey, let's keep going on this." So they raised more funds and they built this thing, and it launched on a Falcon Heavy. And it's been, I think the nominal mission was like a few months, and it's been sailing above our heads for the last two years, almost 3 years. So it has changed its orbit multiple times. It's able to raise and lower and whatnot, but eventually, because of atmospheric drag, it was always going to come back down. It was just a matter of time for when, not if. But this is a proof of concept. Other follow-up missions have been proposed and funded. There's a breakthrough star shot. I don't know if you've heard about this mission. It is a brainchild of people such as Stephen Hawking, where you have a little tiny CubeSat with like basic telemetry, basic cameras and sensors, like very small, but an even bigger sail than that. And the idea is to shoot lasers from Earth at this thing, and it will accelerate to like 30% of the speed of light. And then you send it to Proxima Centauri, which is like 4 light years away. So feasibly, you could do this within 20 years or so, get this thing going fast enough where it'll eventually get to Proxima Centauri. And then it'll take like 4 years to send that back at the speed of light, all that information. But solar sailing is, we saw it in For All Mankind. They unfurled a solar sail in the most recent season to get a little boost from the sun's photons, and all that stems from this Planetary Society mission. So Lightsail 2, thank you for your service.
It's going to be huge for deep space missions and like using that for propulsion. Yeah, you're right. And I could see us using something like this for the next 200 to 500 years. And I don't know, I feel like aliens might have an aspect of this type of technology too. It just seems like it's a smart idea to like harness that power with the sail, right?
The Harvard professor Avi Loeb thinks that Oumuamua was an alien light sail type of thing.
Yeah.
Because as it's being, bombarded by photons from the various stars, it like picked up speed and whatnot. So the concept itself has been thought of for many years. But this was a huge success for space and for the Planetary Society.
All right, well, there you have it. Another episode of Orbital Takes in the books. It's time for us to go watch the Jayhawks beat the absolute shit out of Duke tonight. Pat, where can they find us online?
You can find us online at Orbital Takes on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Rock Chalk and at Astra, everybody.